Welcome back to GoldSeek TV. I'm here with the founder, CEO, and director of BP Silver Corporation, Tim Shearcroft. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, thanks very much for having me, Peter.
You have big news out this morning. The first campaign ever on the Cosuño Project. The last second batch of results came back, and every single hole hit on four various targets. So this is some big news that you're out with today. I'd love to get some more insight on what this actually means. It sounds like we might be early days into a potential very large silver discovery. So let's see what has come back so far from these first drill results. So the first drill campaign had 11 holes in it. There's four different targets. They all hit. So what can you share with us? What is this showing us so far?
Well, first phase drilling achieved our objectives of proving that the mineralization extended below surface and into the lithocap. This is very important as, most lithocaps are barren. So having economic mineralization in the lithocap, along with other pathfinder minerals, with greater chances and more evidence of a productive system and the likelihood of something driving that system that's below the lithocap and ultimately the big target below this lithocap would be the form of a vein or sheeted vein similar to Pulacayo that's located 10 kilometers south where a barren lithocap is sitting there and below that barren lithocap is a single vein that produced over 600 million ounces of silver. So we're quite pleased to see this kind of mineralization in the lithocap. And right now we see both major targets below the lithocap and the lithocap itself being amenable to open pit mining is still on the table. Obviously, it is very early days. 11 holes and 900 meters is just scratching the surface, but being able to put together mineralization in drill holes on all four targets that we tested is exceptional, and I'm very proud of our team and what we produced here. The big part of this story, we did release those first set of drill results back on February the 2nd, where we had 29 meters of 80-gram silver equivalent, which was a great intercept. But the real catalyst here on this news release was showing that there was mineralization in those remaining three, including Pocanita Chico, the furthest target away, at the highest elevation, returning 38 meters of 116 gram silver, including some bonanza grades within that. So, really nice to see that mineralization, in that drill core, but it's connecting the system together. And the mineralized trend from one target to the furthest target is 2.7 kilometers. In addition to that, just showing how extensive this system is the system extends another, I believe, 800 meters going northeast, where there was a sample, and these are, on the outer limits of the system, 56 gram silver, 3.7% zinc, and 1 point something in lead. So, this can be a mineralized trend that is almost 3.5 kilometers on a major system that's on a major belt that's very well known, is a really good thing to see in the early days. As we both know, mineral exploration is very high risk, and the odds of connecting on these types of results are few and far between. So we're thrilled to have these results and continue moving forward. I'm happy. Just less than 6 months out of the starting gate from where we're listing, we traded up over $1 today, sitting with somewhere in a 55-57 million dollar market cap. So, I think we're very pleased with the results so far.
So before we talk about what's needed next, the next steps, if you could kind of maybe visualize a little more of the four different targets of this drill campaign, because you said about 2.5 kilometers from the the furthest two drill targets? Maybe you could share a little more insight.
Yeah. The four targets. The first target was Halsuri. That's a hydrothermal breccia that's outcropping on surface, 40 meters wide, 200 meters along strike. Breccias are nice rocks to see in the system. Tend to be the type of rock where metals cling to them, and we're seeing that in that hole. And of course, in that target, as I've shown in sort of some other videos, small videos that I put out, is there's different areas of this hydrothermal breccia outcropping in the valley. So obviously, next step we'll do some geophysics to understand the geometry of some of that outcropping rock. But the other target, Pocanita Chico, the very altered dome affected by the lithocap. What's important, if you look on that press release on that map showing all the targets, the largest dome is Pocanita Grande. That's really at the center of this system, higher elevation, similar alteration as Pocanita Chico, but much, much bigger. So showing that we have mineralization in this smaller dome, that gives us a lot of confidence when we go forward with testing that fifth target. Um, and the other two targets, Ben-Hur, Poquieta, those were essentially blind targets. There's a lot of cover there. Those are shorter intercepts where we were trying to connect into structures. The reason we selected those was there was some artisanal work, maybe old Spanish mines, old workings from years ago, where there was dumps outside of those that had very good mineralization in the rocks, but also the type of rocks and textures that the geologists like to see. And so we tried to connect with some of those structures. I don't think we fully found what we're looking for in those areas, but nonetheless, we did intercept some good structures on both of those targets. And, we like what we see. And, that target I mentioned with the 56-gram silver that's further to the northeast, extending the trend 800 meters, that's also a very extensive hydrothermal breccia, much bigger than Halsuri. We're looking forward to exploring that. This is a very big system, Peter. It's absolutely tier 1, and there's going to be a lot of work that's required to uncover something that's would later become a mine. So it's really early days. But in that sense, it's a tier 1 opportunity that requires tier 1 thinking and a tier 1 approach. And that's what we'll be doing on our next program, which will be geophysics. We've already hired a consulting geophysicist that understands lithocaps and the Andean environment, and has worked with a lot of um, large tier 1 companies. And so bringing him on board to go along with, the many years and experience of the 4 geologists that we have part of the board and management team, I think is going to produce a good result and produce targets. And, geophysics can't be taken lightly. There is a lot of juniors that go out and do a 50, 100 meter, $100,000 program and come up with a bubble and drill it and think they're going to find a porphyry. And it's just not that easy. You have to put the time and the work in and really understand the data in real time. And when it's completed, process it to the full extent. And we have good data to go by. So instead of doing the geophysics pre-drilling, we're doing it after drilling, where we understand some of the makeup of the lithocap downhole up to 100 meters, and that's going to be very helpful in understanding the geophysics and generating future targets.
Okay, so the next steps already you're working towards it now. Geophysics, setting up the next drill campaign. Uh, what kind of a time frame would you expect this process to take place?
Yeah, geophysics will likely start towards the end of April, and this is going to be after the rainy season in Bolivia, and the required repair to the road following the rainy season. So we're targeting towards the end of April, early May. That geophysics program is going to take a few months. So we would be looking at starting phase 2 drilling likely in July or August. There is a possibility that we go out and start doing some drilling earlier, or in parallel with the geophysics. But I certainly personally, I don't want to rush it. I want to make sure that we do everything correctly with the geophysics, properly understand the geometry of these targets on the surface before we do the drilling, and spending the money on the geophysics correctly and adequately will actually save the company money longer term because we're going to have better accuracy with hitting those targets. But in terms of a company corporately, next steps. We just put this news release out. I'd like to see how the market responds and continues to respond. Obviously, this morning it's been pretty good. Stocks up over $1, but let's see how it goes in the coming weeks. And we'll be looking at a financing. We've been discussing that. As a board, on what that size of financing and terms and how we go and do it. But there's definitely a lot of interest right now in the silver market and obviously with some good results. It's
Yes,
always
yeah.
helps.
Yeah, the timing looks great. I mean, you had a very successful first drill campaign. Now with the silver price being so helpful, the market's doing well. It looks great. You're at the PDAC at the moment, and I imagine it'll be quite interesting to be talking about these first drill results. Do you are you set up with a booth there, or is the company?
Yeah, no, we didn't set up a booth. I'm out in Toronto right now. I've been out here all week, taking meetings with various brokerage houses and family offices, and it's been a very very positive meetings, and that was prior to these um, news release coming out today. So I
Mhm.
think it's going to continue to be very positive in terms of interest. We don't have a booth at PDAC. I wasn't able to set up a booth in time because of everything was pending assays.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a new. Everything's so new. I mean, again, for those who haven't really followed the story, the company is several months old. This is the first ever drill campaign on the Cosuño project, so this is it's quite exciting to see how this is developing very successfully right off the bat. So that's it's wonderful to see. And as you mentioned before, the company has got an excellent technical team, which is able to to focus and develop this properly. You seem to have the right resources in place. You just need to bring the next part of advancing this company forward is funding and becoming more, I guess, being able
Abs-
to be more
ab-
aggressive.
Absolutely. I mean, two things there, Peter. Funding, we have 1.4 million in the bank. We've had a few warrant exercises, is continue to top up our treasury. The remaining warrants, all well in the money, would provide an extra 2 million as those, get exercised before expiry. Um, but the team itself, I always want to highlight that in all of our conversations, how strong of a team we have. We have four geologists as part of the board and management that are all very active and all major shareholders in the company involved. And it's just decades and decades of experience, two PhDs, and the other two geos, they have as much experience and knowledge. They're like PhDs, and just all of that, you know, IP capital is just very beneficial for the company and investors looking at this company. Cosuño looks like it's a wonderful project out of the gate here, but when you're investing in this team, and this team is very committed and very dedicated to the company, to Bolivia, and growing, the projects and companies. So, keep that in mind, when investing. Is a high risk business. So having strong teams that have networks and understand the business and can move, things forward and find opportunities, it's just invaluable.
Yes, well, very exciting to see this come together. It's going to be a pretty big year, sounds like, for the company. So we'll have to follow up and see how the next steps come through and take place. And looking forward to see how that, especially with the geophysics and the drill campaign coming up next this year, will come together. So thank you very much, Tim, for your
Yeah,
time.
yeah, appreciate it. Thank you, Peter. Thank you for having me on again.
Thank you.